Hello, I'm Gary, and welcome to Physical Format Rock and Roll, where we talk about all things rock and roll and classic metal. Cheers. So, today's show is going to be one of our Pick 3 episodes, where I pick my top 3 favorite albums of a particular artist. And keep in mind that when I do this, I am merely talking about my favorites, okay? I'm not talking about necessarily the biggest selling album of that artist or the most popular, most well-loved, whatever. A lot of times that might coincide. But this is just my 3 favorites. And today we're going to be talking about Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. As you can tell by my shirt, Joan Jett is an artist that I have followed for many years. Big fan. I've seen her many times in concert. And she has kind of a strange discography as far as she has a lot of different like kind of greatest hits or albums where some of the songs have been on albums before, but yet there's new ones on it. So it's a little confusing as far as picking it, because like I on these Pick 3 shows, I don't like to pick like greatest hits albums or live albums. I try to exclude that, even though a live album a lot of times is my favorite from the band, but I go for studio albums. So anyway, let's get started. At number 3, this is the one where a lot of us were first introduced to Joan Jett, and that is this bad boy right here, Bad Reputation, okay? This is the one that came before the huge I Love Rock and Roll album, so a lot of people actually didn't know Joan Jett. When she came out with this one, this kind of started to sell really after the I Love Rock and Roll album came out, and then people went back because then it had a video on MTV for it, and it started selling. Kind of like compared to AC/DC, like when Back in Black came out and was so huge, then all of a sudden they the record company released over in America the Dirty Deeds album, and people kind of treated that like a new record. That's kind of the way this was in a way. When it came out, a lot of people went and bought it who didn't get it when it first came out. Of course, Joan Jett came out of the Runaways. She started the Runaways when she was a teenager, with most notable with Lita Ford and Sherry Curry were also in that band. And Lita was the first to strike out, to get her name out there. Joan was, I'm sorry, I think I said Lita. Joan was the first one to get out there and make a name for herself with her solo material. And this comes in at number 3. I really like this album a lot. I'll be honest with you though, I kind of went back and forth as far as my number 3 with this album, Pure and Simple from 1994. This is really a good album too. This never got a lot of recognition like it should, but this is a really kick-ass album. It's got a lot of great songs on it, but I thought, well, overall though, I think I like this one a little bit better. Of course, it's got the song Bad Reputation on there, right? And Do You Want to Touch? So those are the big hits on the album, and to be honest, I still love both those songs, even though I've heard them a million times. I still love to hear them live when I see Joan. And she, of course, always does them. She doesn't change her set a whole lot. But it's got a lot of other good songs on here, too. It shows the side also, besides the hard rockers, it's got the bubblegum kind of stuff for, that 60s style songs that she normally has. And it's on here. And she has it throughout her albums. But anyway, number 3 was Bad Reputation. Next up, my number 2 favorite is Glorious Results of a Misspent Youth. Okay. Uh, this is a really good album. I've always liked that. Of course, the big hit off of this, well, really the only hit off of this was Cherry Bomb. Cherry Bomb was a song that she wrote while she was in the Runaways. The Runaways did that song also. But when they did it, it wasn't Joan singing. It was Sherry. And I mean, I like the way that version of it, that it's kind of, it takes on a different feel to it. But I got to say, I like Joan's version better, her singing it. It's definitely got more of a kick-ass kind of feel to it. And it's got a lot of other songs that are, I really love. Frustrated is good. Long Time. That's one of my favorite Joan Jett songs. And my wife and I saw Joan a couple years ago, and she had threw that into the set, and that was just great. That was just, that's a good song, a good rocking song. It's got Someday on here, Talking About My Baby. I Got No Answers. One of her slow songs that it's kind of neat. She does these kind of, it's kind of a philosophical type song, and it comes off good. This is a really good album. I've listened to this many times over the years. Glorious Results of a Misspent Youth. Coming in at number 1, my all-time favorite Joan Jett album is called Album. This was her follow-up to the I Love Rock and Roll album, which some of you might be surprised that that's not in my top 3 albums. I love that album, but some of it's a little overplayed, and just as far as the album as a whole, I just like these other ones better. And this album is, I don't know, there's just something about this record that I've always liked. It followed I Love Rock and Roll, and it kind of is a little harder edged than that album, and it kind of pissed her record company off in a way. But it's got Fake Friends on here. I've always loved that song, and kind of talks about people around her in the music industry, and how people are just waiting. They don't give a shit about you until you're popular, and then they're just waiting for you to fall, and that's what this song is all about. It's got a good remake of Everyday People on here, and just overall, just a good solid album. It's one of these albums that I'm not skipping a bunch of songs on. I can play it through, and I love that album cover too. That's great. Her jumping up in the air like that with her Gibson. So those are my top 3 favorite Joan Jett albums. If you don't have, 1 or 2 of those, I would recommend picking them up because they're all solid records. And interesting little story. When I saw Joan Jett back in 94, I believe, and saw her in concert there, and back at that time period, she would sign autographs after the show. She would be up on her bus, and there'd be a line of people. This is back before, you got charged an arm and a leg to get an autograph or a picture or whatever. Of course, that was, artists do that now because they don't sell records, right? Nobody buys records because everybody thinks that they're entitled to get their music for free. Okay, so now they charge for these other kind of things to make some money. But anyway, so I saw Joan. I was waiting in line. There's a pretty long line there, and she was on her bus, and, I saw her kind of peek out after a while, looking like, oh my God, how many people are here? So the guy right before me, he goes up, and, he had been drinking and everything, and he was being kind of obnoxious. He was complaining that it was taking a while, blah, 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 all this nonsense. So he goes up there. He goes up on the bus. She's just sitting up there, and, you go up and you say hi, you get an autograph. And I don't know what he said to her, but whatever he said pissed her off. And, they grab him, they kind of throw him out as he's going up. Joan sticks her head out of the bus, or, is hanging off of it like that. And she's like, somebody ought to kick his blanket ass, da, da, da. And she was yelling and stuff, and I'm like, wow, okay, she is not happy. And so it's my turn to go up. So I go up, I walk up there, and I'm, face to face with her. Here's one of my rock and roll heroes. And, this is a little bit younger Joan, right? And at that, how she has that look, she's got the heavy eyeliner she uses, and she's just looking at me, and I'm just kind of standing there like an idiot for a minute. And she looks at me, and she's kind of like, well, just wait for me to say something. And, I'm like, then I start saying, hey, and I start rambling like I'm doing here. And I started telling her how, because she was touring off the Pure and Simple album, which I just showed you a minute ago. I told her how, hey, I love this new album, and I think it's, the best thing you've done in a few years, and blah, blah, blah. And then, she's kind of like, talking to me for a minute, realizing, okay, I'm a fan. I'm not just some, idiot who only knows I Love Rock and Roll and a couple songs. And, so then she's cool. She's talking to me, and she signed this picture to me. To Gary, keep rocking hard, love, Joan Jett. So I've still got this to this day, obviously. She was still in the middle of talking to me when they yanked me off the bus. So, one of her managers or whatever said, all right, let's go. And he kind of pulled me off. But anyway, that was my experience meeting Joan Jett, and I'll always remember it. It was a great show. I was right down front in that show. I've seen Joan many, many, many times, and she's rarely ever disappointed me. So, until next time, this is Gary signing off, and we'll see you next time on Physical Format Rock and Roll.